Hi, today we are going to discuss the last two stanzas of an elementary school classroom in a slum written by Stephen Spender. It's a poem prescribed for 12th grade students and a part of Flamingo textbook. Now you might be thinking why I said only the last two stanzas and not the previous stanzas. It is because I have already discussed the first two stanzas in my previous video. The poem has got altogether 4 stanzas and I have already explained the first two in my previous video. If you have not yet watched, if you have not yet checked out my previous video on the same topic, I highly recommend you to check out my previous video so that you will have a continuation of thought and you will be able to understand the last two stanzas in a better way. As a matter of fact, in my previous video, I have not only explained the first two stanzas, but I have also talked about the political background of the poet's days, that is the days of Stephen Spender. I have talked about the inspiration behind writing such a poem, what made the poet take this topic and write such a poem. So in other words, it can be said that all the background studies and all the things related to the poem I have talked about in my previous video, and also I have given a detailed explanation of the first two stanzas. So I highly recommend you to watch my previous video on the same topic first, and then as a continuation to that, watch this so that you will be in a position to understand and appreciate the poem in a better or in a best possible way. Now, moving to the last two stanzas, but before that, let me tell you, this poem was written to highlight the social injustice and class inequalities prevailing in the world of the poet. That means during the days of the poet. The poet describes the condition of an elementary school classroom in a slum area. So in the first two stanzas we have discussed how the classroom looked like, the children, how they appear to be. They are very malnourished, they are very lean and thin, they are very underfed, they have not been taken care of, their appearance is very bad, and the appearance of the classroom, the pictures that have been displayed there, everything we have discussed in the first two stanzas, which you will find in my previous video. Now moving to the third stanza, let's straight away move to the third stanza. Surely Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal. Now in what sense does the poet say Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example? It's not to be taken literally. It's not that in a literal way Shakespeare is wicked and the map a bad example. It is to say that for these children, for these kids, Shakespeare is wicked and the map a bad example. The literary excellence of Shakespeare and the scenic beauty of the map is something that, these things, they just cannot relieve these children from their depression and despair. For these children, literary excellence is something far-fetched idea, it is something far-fetched thing, and hence this seems wicked. The map on the wall gives them false aspirations as it makes them aware of the beauties of the world, the beautiful world outside. The world of these children is confined to the narrow streets of the slum, and therefore they are made to think that this map is a bad example to them. Now then we read in the second line, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal. These children, these kids feel cheated in being deprived of the thrilling sensations of the sun, the ships and love. And that is why they are tempted to steal. Here, ships, sun and love, they symbolize joy and happiness which these children are deprived of. They have never been loved in their lives. Their only experience is that of hunger and poverty. That is the reason, in order to reach out to the world outside, to the world beyond, these children are tempted to adopt wrong means, even stealing, to fulfill their dreams. So I think by now you must have already understood what does the poet mean when he says Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal. Because these things do not matter to them at all. They cannot understand it practically, and therefore they are being tempted to steal them. Then he says, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes. Cramped is something where there is very little space or where there is no space at all. So the poet says that their lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes, that means they are known to adjusting somehow the place that they hail from, there is very little space. Somehow they manage to live, somehow they manage to adjust So their place is compared to cramped holes from fog to endless night. On one side there is fog, and on the other side there is endless night. Now, although some critics say that from this expression means that from fog means from foggy morning to endless night, that refers to the literal night. But actually, if we think about the background of the poem, we can understand that on one hand, fog refers to something dull thing. No one can see clearly anything through fog, and on the other hand, endless night is after all a symbolic expression for night. So whether it is morning or evening, everything is dull to them, everything is endless night to them. In other words, their future does not seem to be bright at all. They live in cramped holes, and their life is, from fog to endless night. That means somehow they manage to meet the both ends. That is the meaning of the expression from fog to endless night. Then on their slag heap, again slag heap refers to the piles of waste material, and here it stands for the place that they come from, which is full of garbage and waste. So on their slag heap, these children wear skins peep through by bones. That means the same thing that the poet has already talked about in the previous stanzas. These children wear skins, that means they appear to be very skinny, lean and thin. They are lean and lanky, they are malnourished, they are underfed, they are sickly, they are not in a good condition, they are ill-developed, stunted, unlucky air that we have already discussed in the previous video. So they wear skins peeped through by bones. That means one can easily see their bones through their skin. They are so very lean and thin. And spectacles of steel with mended glass. They are also wearing spectacles, the glass of which has been mended. The spectacle is made of steel and the glass is mended, the lenses are mended. So here probably we understand that probably these are discarded spectacles by the rich people, by the powerful people, that has later been mended or repaired and being used by these children. So that is the reason the poet compares these lenses or these spectacles to bottle bits on stone. That means it doesn't appear to be in a good condition. It can easily be seen, it can easily be understood that it appears like small bottle bits that has been repaired or that has been mended. So even they don't have anything which can be said that it was meant for them originally. So they are using something that has been discarded, probably discarded by the high class people. All of their time and space are foggy slum. That means everything for these kids is foggy slum. Everything is dark, everything is dull, especially their future is dull, it is bleak, it doesn't seem to be bright at all. So all of their time and space are foggy slum. Everything that they can imagine, everything that they can see, and everything that they can think of is nothing but their foggy slum. Therefore, so blot their maps with slums as big as doom. That means only their slum is their world. The poet says that this slum should be a part of the map, and since it is not a part of the map, actually the map is something, a bad example. We have already seen that Shakespeare is wicked and the map a bad example. Why? Because it doesn't contain the slum areas that these children are a part of. The poet says blot. Blot means stain or spot. Blot their maps with slums. That means let the map contain their slum, the slum that they come from. Okay, so blot their maps with slum as big as doom. That means let them know, let these children know where this slum area exists or where they are in this map. Then only the map will mean something practically to these kids, to these children. So instead of containing the scenic beauty, the scenic graphic, the big cities, the oceans, the seas, the map should also contain these, the places that the children hail from their slum area. This is the third stanza. Now the last stanza, the poet becomes somewhat optimistic in the last stanza. We can easily understand that in the last stanza, the poet comes full circle. Hopelessness is replaced by hope and pessimism is replaced by optimism. He is imploring everyone, he is requesting everyone, that means people in authority, to come to their rescue. See what he says. unless governor, inspector, visitor. What is the meaning of governor, inspector, and visitor? It refers to people in power, the ruling party, the people who are in authority. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window. That means unless and until they come to their rescue, unless and until these people intervene, this map becomes their window. That means they can only see through this window. They will never be exposed to it. And also these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs. That means they cannot go out of it. Their life will just remain restricted. The poet wishes that their barriers should be broken, their social barriers, economical barriers, their poverty should be removed. And that is why in that sense he says that these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs. Catacombs means, burial chambers. So no dead body can come out of catacombs, or no dead body can come out of a grave. So their life is just like grave. No hope seems to be seen. No, expectation of something good can easily be seen. So their life is compared to, catacombs that shut upon their lives like catacombs. And then the poet says, break, oh break till they break open the town. Till they break the town. The poet appeals to the people in power, people in authority, that their barriers should be broken. Break open till they break the town. That means if you don't break their barriers, if you don't come to their rescue, they may be tempted to take unfair means or to take wrong means. And show the children to green fields and make their world run azure on gold sands. Show these children to green fields. Green fields means the world outside. Let them enjoy the bounties of the nature and make their world run ashore on gold sand. Same, the gold sands and green fields refer to one and the same thing. Let them be exposed to the world outside. Let them enjoy the beauty of the nature that is outside. That is to say, and show the children to green fields and make their world run azure on gold sands. And let their tongues run naked. That means let them read good books. Let them be exposed to books. Let their tongue run naked into books, and white and green leaves open. Here white leaves refers to, the pages of a book. Let them be exposed to books. And green leaves refer to the nature outside, the beautiful nature that they can enjoy. So let them read good books as well as let them enjoy the bounties of the nature that is outside. And then only in the last line the poet says, history theirs whose language is the sun. Only if these things come true, they can create history. Sun refers to brightness. Sun refers to something positive. So only if these things are done, only if intervention by the high class people or ruling party is done, then only they can create history. History theirs whose language is the sun. Then only sun can become their language. That means they can shine. They will shine bright like the sun, and they will have an identity of their own. So I think by now you must have already understood the explanation or the exposition of the 4 stanzas, what the poet means to say. The poet describes in detail the condition of the children in a slum school, and then he wants their lot to be improved. He wants their condition to be improved. Now, before we wind up, let us talk about some important figures of speech as well. We will not talk about all figures of speech, but the important ones that this poem contains. First of all, this poem has good examples of simile. Now, what is a simile? A simile is a figure of speech in which two things are compared using the words like or as. So here is a good example of simile. The poet says, these children's faces like rootless weeds. That means the faces of these children have been compared to rootless weeds. So here is an example of simile. Then again, you have other examples also, with mended glass like bottle bits on stone. So these are examples of simile, when two things are compared using the words like or as. Then we also have examples of metaphor. Metaphor is what we call implied simile. In metaphor also, comparison is made but without using the words like or as. Now we will not be going into all the examples of metaphor, but see, the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes. That means a boy who seems like a piece of paper, and the poet doesn't say that his eyes are like eyes of a rat. Simply the poet says with rat's eyes. That means the comparison is made but without using the words like or as. So here is an example of metaphor. And then we also have examples of repetition. You must have observed far, far from gusty waves, far, far from rivers, capes, then break, oh break. All these examples of, all of these are examples of repetition. These expressions have been used to create effect, to reiterate, to emphasize the point being discussed or being, made. So these are some of the important figures of speech, but besides these, there are other figures of speech as well. But for examination point of view, I think this is good enough. If you have any further question on this topic, on this poem, please feel free to ask me in the comment section. I'll clarify your doubts. Thanks for watching.